(2012) Jameson says JD is a case of social justice versus actual justice. That's another aspect of this too, is that, Amber Heard used the Me Too movement, and whether you believe her or not, it's impossible to look at her op-ed outside of the context of the Me Too movement. And so this is kind of one of these things that to me is very interesting from a sociological standpoint, is that, we have these movements that happen very quickly on social media. And where it's like on a dime, everybody just agrees to go in a certain direction. And a lot of times there's a core truth to it, right? Like there's a core, message that is pretty, like universally acceptable. Like, yeah, okay, harassment and assault of women in a very intimate way is bad. Yeah, I think, yeah, like most of us could agree with that, like treating, people differently under the law, by the cops, depending on your race, is also bad. Yeah, I think most of us could agree with that. Things kind of, as certain movements expand, then you start to see disagreement because, it starts to mean different things to different people. But you also, as it expands, you also have a situation where people can come in and try to exploit that movement for their own personal gain.
Yes.
And so I think that there are a lot of people that have been attracted to this case too, because of that, to see like, okay, like the pendulum swung in one direction, but did it swing too far? Like, are we really going to just categorically believe any woman that comes forward with a claim, even when they are this outrageous, So.
Yeah. And I think this is a good example of how, I don't want to really have too strong of an opinion about how well-intentioned, the movement ever was or anything
Sure.
like that. I mean, that's the thing with the movement. It's not unanimous. A lot of people come to it with different perspectives and values and so forth. But to the extent that, believe women kind of got, accepted as the general rallying point for this particular movement, I think we are kind of seeing a point where people don't accept that. Believe women absolutely should mean listen to women, hear them, investigate their allegations, take their allegations seriously, give them a fair shot. That is what our society should be based on. But it should not, and was never, I hope, intended to mean that you should believe women in the face of overwhelming contradictory evidence, that suggests they are not being truthful.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. And yeah, it's, when it does come to sort of a grassroots movement, you're right. Like it's impossible maybe to know, if what the original intent of sparking that movement really was, whether it was for proper motives or for improper motives, but one way or another we end up with this movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I mean, yeah, there are some good things that can happen that I've talked about this many times. Like, I don't think Harvey Weinstein would have been put in jail if not for the Me Too movement.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's someone who, I mean, there's a lot of evidence showing that he was absolutely a monster and basically just terrorized so many women and kind of held an entire industry hostage, it seems, for his own purposes. But at the same time, so, there are good things that things like that bring, this kind of sweeping sort of movement. But there's a lot that kind of gets washed in with that, and so it's one of those things that I think that now we are kind of in a process of sort of taking a step back from several of these movements and saying, maybe not everyone that's in this movement is telling the truth.
Sure.
So.
And you do at some point, any movement can be corrupted once money gets involved,
True.
Once power gets involved. So it's just something, I don't know. I suppose I'm inherently skeptical, just, as a kind of personality characteristic, but
Me too.
I am. I'm always going to question, the motives behind publicizing these types of things. obviously not because nobody can have good motives, but just because the incentives to self-benefit are so obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree.